Matthew Holt on the HIMSS floor. We have Calum Yacoubian. He is the Project and Strategy Director, if I got that right, for a company called Linguamatics, which is part of IQVIA.
Yep.
All right, and you're also, you just told me, an Egyptian Scot, which is another weird combination.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not many of us.
All right, so Calum, let's unwrap the envelope slowly. IQVIA was formed a decade or so back between a merger of two huge companies, Quintiles and IMS Health, which are kind of in the business of supporting clinical research development and information, mostly with drug companies and a bunch of other stuff as well.
Yeah.
And then Linguamatics was a small company they acquired
2019.
5 years ago, okay, right? So,
yeah.
All right. Roughly unpeel the air. What is Linguamatics doing now within IQVIA, and who are you serving? Tell me about the Linguamatics part.
Yeah. So we focus very much on natural language processing. So taking unstructured data, turning it into structured information, asking questions of it. Something that until very recently would have been pretty niche, but thanks to generative AI, which is a type of NLP, all of a sudden cool if that's your kind of thing. So we serve like loads of different industries. I've focused really much in healthcare, so providers, academic medical centres, those big IDNs, payers, healthcare IT, and government organisations.
All right, IQVIA is known mostly for serving the drug business.
Yeah.
The pharmaceutical business. We won't discuss their activities in Colombia, but how much of the company is doing more traditional healthcare like systems and providers?
It's a relatively small part,
yep.
Relative to the bigger business. Like, of course, within the clinical trial side, operationally, all of that is within healthcare, but it's all essentially research, whether it's pharma funded or grant funded. So it's a relatively small part of the business, but the business is 95,000 people, Fortune 500. So it's a small part of a very big whale.
Yeah. Right. So let's talk about what Linguamatics does, what the change with generative AI has been. NLP's been around for a while.
Yeah.
You used to be doing sort of clinical background research for pharma and other stuff.
Yeah.
Then generative AI comes on. Is it the same? Is it really different? Explain.
Yeah. So same but different. It's different in many ways. So I think the biggest difference, not about technology, but from what it does, is it democratizes the capability. So anyone can do NLP to some extent now just by being able to prompt ChatGPT or something. But as you say, NLP has been around since the 50s, the 1950s, and it has evolved. That evolution has happened more quickly with all AI in the last kind of 10 years. And GPT and large language models, they're just the latest evolution in that, although albeit very exciting. And they're very good. They can do many of the tasks that we do with NLP or traditional NLP approaches. Not always as well, but what they're obviously amazing at, which if you've ever interacted with them, is obviously in the generation of human language. So part of the toolkit, hugely important. And yeah, obviously I think there's 30 talks at HIMSS this year, or if not more, about generative AI. It's definitely the hot topic.
Absolutely. Okay, so you got generative AI, you got an NLP. What are the use cases? How are you actually seeing used? Who is writing you a check to do what?
So whatever technique it is that we're doing, and that obviously is my focus within kind of providers and payers, we're obviously trying to do as much as we can to impact on the big pain points that exist in healthcare. So clinician burnout, lack of staff, repeated, onerous, time-consuming tasks. So any use case that you have that can kind of take away or mitigate some of that pain is where we're focusing. So one example for us is helping clinicians identify social determinants of health from unstructured medical records. So if you think about a busy emergency department, they have social care workers deployed there to identify patients with social risk so that they don't bounce back into the hospital every week because they have no home support. We use NLP to extract that information from their medical records so that the social workers spend 80% of their time seeing patients rather than 80% of their time trying to find the patients who are at risk. So one of many use cases, but I think one that's quite exciting.
Okay, where are you seeing the adoption of your product? And then you mentioned ChatGPT, and obviously a ton of people. It's one of the things where, the central host may be figuring out what it's doing, but everyone around the edge in the organization is able to hit ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever and do stuff. So where are you seeing adoption of your product, and how are you distinguishing from just a random person with a random problem hitting ChatGPT?
Yeah, so it's interesting. The way that large language models or organizations are approaching them, it's the first time that I've seen this in my career, is They're not saying I have a problem, can LLMs fix it? They're saying I have an LLM, is there a problem I can solve with it? So I think there's a lot of that still going on. I think in pockets you're seeing some really exciting case studies and pilots. For the most part, within what we're doing, if we're doing any kind of large-scale kind of summarization type work, whether it is research for clinicians or other kind of policy documents on the payer side, that's where we're increasingly using large language models, because for summarization they're excellent. But for the kind of core of what we do, which is information extraction, like 80% of a person's medical record is unstructured, it's free text. So for that core task of extracting information, we're still predominantly using our toolkit, but increasingly pulling in some of the advantages of large language models, maybe some of the smaller ones that can be deployed at scale in a healthcare setting.
What do you think, I mean, as a business question, and you see it, I mean, that's one area you're seeing a lot about ambient scribing. There are a few other areas where it's coming off. Sounds to me as though a lot of this stuff is democratization, but democratization to some extent usually means in tech, one, very big players roll this out and often for free or cheap or for free. And you would tend to, if you look at social networks, search, other things, it tends to get under very few big players, and it's tough to be a niche right around the edges. What kind of pressure are you seeing on things like people saying either, I want it cheaper, or I think Google can do this good enough and they're giving me other stuff for free? What does that put you're not a small company, but you're obviously not a whale, you're not that level of whale. How does that play out strategically for you?
I think like these challenges that you've articulated, they've been around for a while. Like, this is not the first foray of big companies into the NLP space. There have been the big companies going into the NLP space for a number of years. You can get it, I'm sure, as a package alongside, say, migrating your EHR to the cloud. We still are very strong in terms of the capability, in terms of its accuracy, in terms of the expertise we have in the company, our depth of expertise within this type of data. And then also alongside that, I think quite uniquely, we also have kind of market-leading privacy capabilities and technology. So hugely important at the minute. So I think with all of these things, we can't stand still. We have to adapt. But it's exciting, and we're getting loads of conversations from folks that we maybe wouldn't have previously because they hadn't heard of this stuff.
That's interesting. So you think the fuss is expanding the market, not actually contracting, putting under pressure? Interesting.
Yeah, it's expanding the market. It's of course, when there's this kind of volatility or disruption in a market, then there are risks, but there's also potentially benefits. And so we're enjoying the wave. We're enjoying the new opportunities it's giving us. And I think the future is bright for NLP in healthcare.
Fantastic. I'm talking with Calum Yacoubian. He is the Product and Strategy Director at Linguamatics, which is part of IQVIA, from the halls of Glasgow via Egypt. Or was it Egypt via Glasgow? Whichever.
Yeah, one or the other.
One or the other. Right. Calum, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.